Welcome to today's meditation. Today, I'd like you to reflect on all the ways that you see yourself. In a transformation process, it is essential to know where we start. Personality, the facets of self, or the internal categories that we use to describe ourselves, are crucial in it. We will start today's journey with a short body scan. You can keep your eyes closed or not, whatever feels more natural. The purpose is to freely move the parts of your body that I'll name. So let's start by taking a comfortable position. You can either sit or lay down, whatever feels better. Now, bring your awareness to the toes of your right and left foot and start to wiggle them. The toes are a hinge joint. The name hinge comes from its ability to hinge like a door, back and forth. Maybe you want to move some toes as groups or individually. You can just do the right or just the left feet if you'd like. Maybe you want to see if you can spread your toes. Move your toes in any which way you want. Your toes do so much work all day long. When we are on your feet and they're cramped up in shoes, so really let them move, stretch and explore. Now come to stillness and notice how toes feel. Now let us travel to the ankles. The ankles are condyloid joints. They can move up and down. Do a little pointing and flexing, and from left to right, like the feet are waving. As you might notice, the ankles have a little more mobility than the toes. Often the ankles can get quite tight, and stretching them brings fresh blood supply and might feel warm and yummy. You can hold and stretch in one direction. Keep moving them, anything you want at all. Now come to stillness and notice how the ankles feel. Now onto the knees. The knees are basically a hinge joint. Although they have mobility to move side to side, we actually don't want to do this. You may want to straighten the knees and bend them. You can lift the feet off the floor, so you can do this into the air, or you can do it with the feet touching the ground. Also, with a little help from the hips, you can make circles with the knees. Move any way you like, one at a time, both. Have fun with the knees. Now, come to stillness and notice how the knees feel. Now, onto the hips. The hips have what is called a ball and socket joint. This kind of joint allows the greatest amount of movement of all the joints. You can move back and forth, side to side and in circles. Although the hips often tend to be tight, they allow for a great deal of mobility. Supporting this mobility through movement keeps the hips healthy into old age and allows us to feel fresh and healthy. Explore the movement of your hips. Maybe you even want to move the knees and hips together. How is that different than just moving one joint? Now, come to stillness and notice how the hips feel. Now let's bring our attention to the back. The back is divided into 3 sections and each with several bones called vertebrae. Between each vertebra is a joint. Let's start first with the vertebra in the lower back, known as the lumbar region. You can try to feel each vertebra separately or as a team. You can also twist your lower back a bit by rolling the knees to the left and right. Now come to stillness and notice how the lower back, the lumbar spine, feels. Is it different than the rest of the back, which has been still? Next comes the middle back, the thoracic spine. As this part of the spine is attached to the rib cage, it has the least amount of movement. You can try to feel each vertebra separately or as a team. You can round in the middle back and straighten it. You can also try to twist it a little side to side. You may notice, however, if the rest of the spine is held in position, it doesn't really twist too much. Again, do whatever you would like. You can also move the thoracic and lumbar spine together. Now come to stillness and notice how the middle back, the thoracic spine, feels. Finally, move to the top of the spine at the neck region. This part of the spine is known as the cervical spine. It has the most movement. It can move from side to side, from left to right, and in circles. It can also stretch from left to right. You can bring the right ear to the right shoulder and the left ear to the left shoulder. Enjoy moving the neck. It can get really tight and it's nice to have time to stretch it. You can move your neck along with the rest of the back if you'd like, exploring the entire spinal column. Now, notice how the spine feels and how the whole back feels. The most mobile part of the body is the shoulder region. Although the shoulders can get tight and tense, as a ball and socket joint, they have potential for a lot of movement. The joint is also not as tightly fit as the hip and is more mobile. Try to move the shoulders in every direction you can imagine. You can move with other parts of the body or alone. Now bring your attention to your elbows and move them freely in all way that feels good. Now you can add the movement of your wrists, and you can also add the movement of your fingers. Now that we've moved all the mobile joints in the body, just take the next few minutes to move in any way you'd like. You can explore, have fun, release tension, whatever you think you need. Now, please take a deep and slow breath. Let's analyze your way of perceiving yourself. How would you finish the sentence? I am. What are the first 3 words that come to your mind? I am. Give yourself a moment to reflect and find 3 answers. Are they connected to your physical being? Do you describe yourself, for example, as a woman? As a human? Did you pick some other physical qualities? Or maybe your answer comes from the role that you're playing, like a daughter or something with your job title. Perhaps you decided to use your traits of personality or psychological state as the word describing yourself. I'm kind, I'm helpful, or maybe some negative ones. I'm worried, I'm lost. Or maybe you defined yourself more spiritually as a soul, a being, an existence. Whatever you identified, but give these terms a color. You can pick different ones for different categories. Let's pick green for physical, blue for psychological, yellow for social, and red for spiritual. Now imagine that you are a mixture of these 4 layers. Try to imagine that these colors surround you and shape your form. Slowly add the first physical layer. Imagine color green and all the physical traits of yourself. Who are you physically? Now, Add the second layer, blue, and think of all the psychological definitions of yourself. Who are you or how are you? Add another yellow layer and think of it as all social roles and obligations you play throughout your life. Who are you in the social context? And finally, add a purple layer of your identity in all spiritual sense. Now, imagine that you need to explain all these various colors to someone who is colorblind. You need to explain who you are, but he cannot perceive the different layers. For him, they don't exist. If you tell him that you are all the elements from the red colored layer, he will not understand. How would you then express who you are? If you are not your physical self, if you are not your psychological self, if you are not your social self, if you are not your spiritual self, what is left? Now bring your awareness back to breathing. Take a slow, deep breath in and out. You can slowly open your eyes when you're ready.